Hey, it's Eddie and welcome to another edition of Stuffin' Things. Today I'm back working on the Step Van RV and I'm going to be putting some windows in. I actually already put this window in partially. It's not 100% in, but it's in most of the way. I put this in the other day and realized I should have filmed it, so I'm going to actually flip and film the other side. But this will be good because it'll show you some of the stuff I'm doing. So the first thing I did was I actually built a frame. I welded up a solid metal frame because after cutting through a couple of these ribs, the side of the van got kind of wobbly and I didn't like that and I wanted to add some strength to it. So what I did was I welded up a frame, I painted it so it wouldn't rust because it's made out of steel, and this is aluminum, that's steel, and then I've clamped the window in. The thickness of the frame was determined by the thickness of the actual window and the interior window frame. They come in various thicknesses. This one ended up being, I think it's a total of 2 inches. So I used 1 3/4 inches for the steel for the box. You figure in I've got a little bit of thickness for the aluminum, and then another little for a trim piece that'll go inside. But when it's done, I think it's going to look really good. I'm pretty happy with how it came out. Let me show you how I did some of the stuff on the outside, and then I'll show you the tips on what I did on the inside. So basically what I did was, after cutting the hole and putting the frame in, I pop riveted the frame in with just little rivets to hold it in place, and then fit the window in, and it worked pretty well. Okay, so I've already measured and marked my lines where I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to just take this frame, hold it up, make sure the lines kind of line up, and they do. One thing to be concerned about too is I don't want to cut through all of them. I wanted to leave at least one rib in the back of the structure. So I'm going to butt this end of the window frame is going to butt right up to this, so I don't have to touch this rib. I will be cutting out this rib, and then fitting this in, and then I'll use this to make my lines. Okay, one concern, I'm going to use a die grinder to cut this, and this is aluminum, it'll cut through it pretty quickly, and I need to cut this, and I need to cut the thin piece here without cutting through this. And my concern obviously is I don't want to cut too deep, so I could try to do it carefully, but I figured out a better way. I took an old scraper that's steel, and what I'll do is I'll grind off these heads and I'll wedge this underneath here, and what'll happen is when the blade of the grinder goes through the aluminum and hits this, it'll start sending sparks. So once I start getting sparks, I know I've actually cut through the aluminum and I need to stop. I found that this works really well. You don't have to use a scraper. You can use like a piece of sheet metal. Whatever you can fit and pound in underneath there will work. But it's a great way to make sure you don't cut too much out. So what I did on the opposite side, it worked great. I was very happy with it. Okay, so I used the I used the window frame from the window to kind of trace out my corner lines. And this is a critical step because if you cut these wrong, you're going to be screwed. And it's always better to cut it a little tighter and then grind out in spots, because if you overcut it by more than 1/4 inch, you're going to end up having gaps and problems with leakage and everything else. So you want these to be nice and snug. So anyways, we're going to pull this down now. I have my lines. I'm going to make a couple of cuts with the grinder in each of these, and then I'm going to use a reciprocating saw with a metal blade on it. Okay, so the window's cut out. Now for the moment of truth, I gotta put the window in and that fits pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I'm gonna trim a little bit here and maybe whack that down a little bit. That's kind of the snugness that you want on these. Okay, so by clamping this in, I can also see where there's a couple of little high spots. What I did on the last one was, while I had it clamped in, I took the grinder and I just kind of shaved those spots down, which made the window fit much easier. Again, you want to be really careful about how much shaving you do, because if you shave off too much, you're screwed. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from the outside and I'm going to drill holes in. And what I tend to do, because I want it to look kind of nice and uniform, is I put holes in the middle and then I space them out from there. So before I continue putting the window in, I'm going to take off this sticker material, which is really hard to get off. But I found actually a pretty good way of doing it. Let me show you. So it's an eraser on the end of my bit, and it's really good for getting these stickers off without messing up the body. So I'll show you how that works right now. And now we drill. Okay, that did a pretty good job of stiffening this up. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of grinding so that the window will fit a little better, and then we'll pop it in. Check it out. So using the window frame as a guide, I can see spots that are high spots, and I'm just going to grind them down now. So it's not totally fit. I've got to put a gasket around the outside. So I'm going to have to take the whole thing out, gasket it, put it back. I also need to put a piece of trim that fits between this piece and the inside flange that'll suck it in closer to the body on the outside. There's a little bit of a gap here, but I knew that, I expected that. I also want to spray a little bit of foam insulation in each of the corners to make it a little more airtight, for you know, so I don't get drafts and stuff. But yeah, this came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. The wall is now, you can see it's got a little flex to it, but it's a lot more solid than when I cut out the ribs. And I'm going to be framing up this. The whole wall, the whole inside is going to be framed in 2x4s for a couple reasons. These ribs, for some strange reason, are all different sizes. They actually get thicker. On this side, they start at 2 1/4 inches thick, and by the time you're at the front, they're almost 3 inches. And on that side, they're only about 1 inch. They only stick out about 1 inch, and in the back, they stick out about 1 3/4 inches. So it's really weird how they use different size ribs. I don't know why that was. Maybe it was just what they had lying around when they were building the thing. I don't know. I don't care. I'm going to frame it up, though, with 2x4s so everything's even. I'll fill the space with insulation. I'll run all my conduit. And then... you know, and then I'll put siding or put interior siding up. Something I haven't figured out what I'm going to do yet. So that's that. That's the window. And yeah, I like it. All right, thanks for watching.